time to please rise and join us in the pledge of allegiance to both the United States and Texas flag. And then we'll have an invocation led by Commissioner Long.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
On, you're ready to
Please bow your head. Most gracious and heavenly Father, from now on today as we conduct business for Ward County, we ask you to show us the ability to make good decisions on behalf of the county. Continue to watch over all employees, law enforcement, first responders, and our military. Keep them all safe from harm's way. We ask you to healing power against the COVID virus. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Well, as we get started, I'd ask you to please make sure your cell phones are on vibrate, or turned off. A couple of points of mentioning, the sheriff's not amongst us today. His uncle passed. Donald Dutton of Hobbits, he was a legend. If you knew him, he's a character. I've gotten to know him more in the later years. Wonderful man. I had a text this morning. Scott Arbuckle passed last night. I don't remember Scott.
Oh, wow.
He's been fighting cancer for some time. But, Scotty was the LCRA director for us. The reservoir is named after him. And he'll certainly be missed. He's been in court a few times talking about certain issues. So we'll remember those. The Keach Bar and Drought Index, I was gone this weekend, but I hear there was a lot of rain. But it's down to 168, so no burn ban. How much rain did we get?
Over the 3 days, I got close to 2 inches of rain, and some spots got a lot more. So, but we didn't have any reports of damage from all the winds and everything.
Was there hail here or anything?
We had small hail on Saturday night, I think it was.
Today, it clears up this morning, it's gone pretty much.
Oh, we still have some stuff that through the week, but it's not nearly as bad as the gloom and doom was last week when they said it was going to be. So, and they did not get the rain upstream that we were afraid of. So it doesn't look like that the river's going to be a problem.
For the record, that's Andy Kirkland speaking from the paper report. Our inmate count's at 96, so we're doing good there. We're going to open up our courts on June the 1st, so another week with slowly. And I talked about that briefly before we'll start moving this here. We have a proclamation before us. It's 2017. It's April is Fair Housing Month. I believe this proclamation is a requisite as part of the applications and things to the government. Is anyone here for the Fair Housing Month?
No.
Okay, this is something we do every year. Is there a motion to pass proclamation 2017 recognizing April as Fair Housing Month? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Graves, seconded by Commissioner Zahn. Graves and Zahn, all in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, that carries 5-0, and it's just a place with my signature on it. At this time, gentlemen, does anybody have anything up here they'd like to add? Would anyone like to address the court on a non-agenda item or any item? And I guess we'll get it when we get no one present to do that. We'll move to agenda item number 1, provide an update and take all appropriate action for county offices to respond to COVID-19 relation situations. We've had this on here throughout, just a chance to give an update if there's any issues that we have. As of last Friday, we had 44 confirmed cases, 34 were recovered, and there were 10 active. As of last Friday, 6 were in Wharton. Of those, 3 were in the same family. One was in East Bernard. The other East Bernard person had recovered. Also a family member, though, of the one that still has considered active. There are 2 in Louise, and there was one from El Campo. It was a nursing a person who works for a nursing home, a staff member. Andy and he's posted it, and I've mentioned here before. We should at this time have tested 100% of all nursing home staff and residents. That was a directive from the governor, so they should all be tested. We should start getting those results in any time now. So do not be surprised if our numbers go up. In fact, everybody kind of shut down from the state over the Memorial holiday, so there were no reports. I will jump the gun and tell you that today Andy's going to release that there's going to be 6 new active today. But he just told me 4 of those are in the same East Bernard home, and they're all recovered now. So this just tells you the frustration, but there'll be a report of 6 new active, and of those 4 in the same house are recovered. The other one is an elderly lady in El Campo, I believe in the 80 to 90 age group, a female, who is battling pneumonia, I believe. And then the other is a healthcare worker here in Wharton, I believe in the 50 to 60 age group. She works, I'm going to stay at an extended care facility. It's like a nursing home. I don't want to give the name unless.
But it's not Morton County where she works.
No, she works in Fort Bend, but she lives in Wharton.
Right.
And so she got it at a facility that cares for people. I don't want to name names because I don't know what's kosher and what isn't. But we try to be as open as we can.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
To move from active to recovered, do they test after 10 days or 14 days, or how do you change status?
Oh, Andy, do that.
Normally, what happens is that, yes, they do have to test, and they're supposed to test negative twice after 14 days of the treatment. Or if the 4 that just came on and went off never were symptomatic, they were put on because they had been exposed and were within that 14-day quarantine period. So you can get off without being tested, but most of the ones, if you had tested positive and you actually had symptoms, then you have to test negative twice. That's our understanding. Now, if that happens with everybody, I don't know, because they are testing all over. And I know the number of tests that they're doing has jumped. When we were testing here in Wharton County a couple of weeks ago, they were doing about 12,000 tests a day, and they're up over 25,000 tests a day.
But you said the 4 in East Bernard were never tested?
That is my understanding.
Why are we gonna add those to the confirmed?
Because that's what we get from the state. The state assumed they're presumed positive because they had been exposed to someone that was positive.
And I guess
Crazy.
the state makes the list, and so the state sticks them on there in the state. So when the state says they're recovered, we pull them off. We've seen the radio station and others go on websites. I think for weeks it said we only had 7, but the state never.
And the Dish's website wears out the Dish's employees because they're not actually running their own website. That's run by a different port of the state government. And so where they're getting some of those numbers, the Dish's people don't know, and those numbers don't always add up correctly. So
It's been frustrating.
it really has been.
Because
It really has
people
been.
will find somebody has it and they'll start the story. We know there's a lady here who has it, and they call one of us and we go, no. And they go, yeah, they do. And we go, no, they don't. And then a week later they do. And we look like bigger fools than we are.
When somebody goes and tests, they give them the information and they will test them then. And I know last week, they gave us one of the addresses that they gave us. When we looked at it, we thought, well, no, nobody's living there. It was the address for the old nursing home here on Russell Street. And so then you have to go and they have to go hunt it down. We can't. So it is frustrating.
So Andy, you were telling you believe there's going to be some more recovery.
There's going to be some more. I know there are going to be some more recoveries coming off. We just printed off the sheet a few minutes ago because they were, the changes that the Dishes had over the holiday were that they did some changes with personnel. And I think that's what a lot of the reason that we didn't get the information that we would normally get on a daily basis. But Dr. Googles called me yesterday, and that's how I got the news. And he would have gotten that from Dr. Valencia.
I would assume at some point we're going to get where we're not going to do it day to day.
I hope.
I just think it's going to probably go to by every 2 days or
Sure.
a week. And it reminds me of when I was real little, and I remember watching the news in the evening. I didn't know what it meant because I was waiting for cartoons or whatever. But who Walter Cronkite or somebody would come on and he would say at the end of the news how many died in Vietnam that day. I didn't know what that meant, and now it's not death, but it's kind of like the same thing.
Well, and we really are expecting some spikes to be coming up. One from, like you were saying, the nursing home test that all went through. Just the fact that bars and restaurants have reopened to some extent, and there's gonna be a lot more exposure. It's gonna cause a spike everywhere throughout the state.
That's what I thought when I saw these six that you brought.
I did too, because I thought that was about the right time for, after the beaches opened and everybody crowded down there.
I think all the high schools have graduation this week, whether it's Thursday or.
June, no, next
Oh,
week.
next week.
Next week.
That's right. That's right. Schools are out though. All the schools are out. All
Schools
the
are done.
daycares are back up, so everything's.
The
back to
Wharton
back.
County High Schools have done a great job in the plans that they've written up and how they're doing that. And I really commend them on, they have. And we work with them and then work with the Weather Service to be sure that they're not gonna get thundered out, during the deals, because now it's different. It's a whole lot harder to go from the football field to the gymnasium when you need to have spacing. And so we'll be working with them very closely.
But all the schools are done and daycare's up again, so that's. Does anybody have any questions or anything else? This is just kind of informative here. We'll bring the disaster declaration back, I think the first quarter in July, just for money purposes, to see if we can reimburse. We're looking into the CARES money. There's money that's sent to the county that can be used, but it has to fall into a certain category. I will tell you, Andy, last Thursday or Friday, I was on all the judges and Senator Colforth. There's a lot of counties that are not taking the CARES money. I don't know if you've heard that. There's so many guidelines, so much auditing, and a lot of counties do not have more than maybe $10,000, $20,000 in expenses. Like we're hoping, for instance, to get y'all's overtime and such, but a lot of counties don't have that. Jackson County's had they've been blessed with a few number of cases. So a number of counties are skipping on that. Have you heard that?
I have actually, so we'll just kind of play it by ear and see how it goes and see what we want to do. I do have some expense updates for you if you'd like to hear any of that. So far, we're coding expenses to the sub-account 479, we spent 15,000 in that line item so far. And then for payroll and benefits, we spent 19,955. That does not include Friday's paycheck coming up. So total expenditures were right at 35,000. Wharton County share is going to be 25% of that will not be get reimbursed on. And so if you take the calculations on what's going to get reimbursed and what's not, it looks like we're looking around 14,000 right now. The numbers will go up after each payroll passes and stuff like that. 35,000 expenditures, 14,000 not reimbursed.
Okay, thank you. That's good to know.
You're welcome.
Okay, anything else? Then we'll move on. Agenda item number 2, take all appropriate action to ratify the purchase of a Vulcan LG 500 freestanding fryers for the Wharton County Jail for approximately $1,500. Commissioners, our Sheriff Shannon Trubar is seeking court approval to ratify this purchase. The previous fryer was the original purchased fryer when the jail was built back in the late 1990s. Heck of a fryer. The old fryer was leaking oil and had to be replaced. The approximate cost of the replacement was $1,500. Sheriff Trubar has the needed funding in his current 2020 annual operating budget. This item is on today's agenda pursuant to the county budget policy requiring court approval for the purchase of non-budgeted capital items. Are there any questions or motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Zahn, seconded by Commissioner Graves. Zahn and Graves, all in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, same sign. It carries 5-0. Item 3, take all appropriate action regarding DARE position and mental health transport officer. Our county sheriff would like to switch the roles of 2 of his deputies. Basically, they are trading their current positions. Without mentioning names, just sticking to positions, the DARE officer will take over mental health transport, and the mental health officer will become the DARE officer. The sheriff seeks to maintain both officers at their existing pay set schedule. Our current DARE officer earns a slightly higher salary due to years of experience. We're talking about $2,000 roughly. While both departments fall under the sheriff's overall operating budget, the auditor's office is requesting that we recast the two salaries and the accompanying benefits into their proper new departmental line items. This is primarily a bookkeeping issue. Of course, the sheriff, like any other department head, can move and recast is the word I'm using, his staff members as desired. There may, there'll be no overall dollar change to the current budget. The forthcoming DARE budget may go down a little bit. If you remember, Louise and Bowling contribute approximately a third. And so if the salary decreases by a couple of thousand for the new person, they may see a little shift. They may not. They may add money to some other thing like materials or copy, and I'm not sure what all that is. The sheriff has spoken with Louise and Bowling School Districts. They're aware of this. Everybody's excited. Nothing's happened. They're just shifting around, doing some different things, new things and such. Everybody's done a wonderful job. I would think Commissioner Getch and Commissioner Zong will tell you that's some of the best money we spend. We go to the graduations and such, and it gives a presence there in the campuses. They're all very thankful. But anyway, the bottom line is we're going to shift the budgets around. We're going to move the salaries and the benefits with the person. So the DARE salary, the new person's actually going to make approximately $2,000 less than the current one. Good with that, Barbara?
Yes, exactly.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve this transition? Motion by Commissioner Getch. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Zahn. Getch and Zahn, all in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? That carries 5-0. Agenda item number 4, take all appropriate action to approve changes in the personnel policy for harassment, which is in section 12, and drug testing, which is in section 19. Our county attorney and our auditor and personnel office have been working together. There's some to make some changes or some amendments in our personnel policy as it relates to harassment drug guidelines. I believe some of these are mandated by the state, and so that's why they're being changed. I'm going to ask our auditor, Barbara Starling, she'll take us through those.
Sure. How detailed do you want me to be? It's basically on section 12, the harassment policy. It was in the past, it was sexual harassment there only. And so we basically revamped it and expanded it to be harassment. Okay, there's various forms of harassment. There's still sexual, which is still included in there. There's verbal, nonverbal, physical, interference or hostile environment, and then finally sexual harassment. So basically, we looked at it, we had an incident that kind of triggered all of this, and we said, well, we just need to really kind of add to our current policy and get the other things in there that seem appropriate. What I did was kind of go to other counties' personnel policies, kind of look and see what looked appropriate for Wharton County, and work with Trey and everything like that, and this is what we came up with.
Barbara, do you have a copy of the one for that's?
Yeah.
You have the final new one. You have the one that's been worked. I don't know.
It's in the packet.
Yeah,
It's in here?
it's in the
Okay.
packet.
Oh, it is?
I don't know if you want to
It's
put it at the records. I don't think we need to go through and read every item. I don't believe, as long as Barbara has the list.
Yeah.
In other words, there were some
Maybe
words
it's
that were
added.
added and then some
Yes.
stricken. You have that list?
I'll have to look through here, and maybe it was out of order, wasn't in order by the item numbers.
Okay, if not, we'll give you.
Right, it's definitely easier to print it in color, yes,
Yeah.
she scanned it in color.
Okay, because I did print it in color.
Okay. So
If I
yes,
did print it in color, that would be good.
so we just struck out the items that were currently there, and then we added basically and expanded on the harassment part. On the drug testing, the main change on there was that we had random drug testing for safety impact positions, which are non-CDL holder positions. And Lori Floyd with TAC, she's like we do not recommend that. Something came out on listserv that said, well, that's not constitutional. Texas Constitution doesn't allow you to do random testing on non-CDL people. So we had Lori go back and she made several recommendations. Trey took all of those and basically struck section 19.22 out of the whole policy piece of it. Like I said, that one was random testing for safety impact positions. We are no longer going to be doing random testing on that. If you're kind of concerned with that, we do have in our policy a certified departmental person and initiate a random test based upon reasonable cause. But right now, we don't have any of those people. Nobody is certified as a department person, okay? So Tanya said that driving safety services is the one who currently does our drug testing. And so she looked at that and said if we wanted to, David said there's an online course. It's $49 per person. What you do is go through 4 30-minute sessions, and then we do a test after every section. You can start and stop. It's an easy course. It should be, something very informative. And then that's what makes it a certified supervisor awareness drug alcohol training person. So you can kind of look at that and see if you recommend who would you like to kind of go through those things. But right now, basically, the only change we're making is we're saying no random testing on non-CDL holders. Okay.
And I do have that in my packet.
Okay. And so for the record, the changes to the sexual harassment fall under section 12. It used to say sexual harassment, sexual has been stricken and now it says harassment.
Yeah.
And they've rewritten, the proposal today is 12.01 policy and the 3 parts under that. 12.02 definition has been rewritten, and there are 4 or 5 asterisks or places under there. 12.03 claims has been rewritten, and 12.04 reporting. So 12.01 policy, 12.02 definitions, 12.03 claims, and 12.04 reporting have all been rewritten. In our packets is a copy in red of the stricken words, and then all of the new wording, and again, totally rewritten under section 12, harassment. Concerning the alcohol testing process, this falls under 19.08, section 19.08 of our policy. And there's the word in the 3rd paragraph, will has been stricken, and also for 3 days has been stricken, and may has been inserted, but I won't go into those too much, but there's a change in 19.08 alcohol testing process, and 19.10 or 19.10 refusal to test. There have been a few words added in blue. Are those the only changes? No, back here in section 19.13, pre-placement testing, there's a sentence that's been stricken, and then some other words, again, that's all in blue. Under 19.18, certified departmental supervisors, the word treasurer's been stricken and auditor is added, it's in blue. There's the whole paragraph is referred to by the auditor. 19.22, random testing safety impact positions been stricken. There have been some changes made in 19.23, random computer selection. In 19.24, random selected employees, there's the last sentence has been stricken. In 19.25, emergency personnel. There's been a change in 19.28 about positive test results. For the record, in case I missed any, I'm just going to say we're asking approval of all changes, amendments, additions that are made in either red or blue colored ink in this policy. I'll make a motion today that we approve the amendments and changes to our personnel policy for harassment in section 12 and drug testing for section 19 as presented today. Is there a second? Second. seconded by Commissioner Graves. Fitline makes the motion, Graves seconds it.
One question.
Yes, please.
Barbara, just for clarification, we still, if there's like a minor accident.
Oh, yes.
That person would still be tested, whether he's CDL or not.
Correct. We're still gonna do pre-employment testing on everybody in order to, hire somebody. We're still doing, if there's an accident, they still will have to go and get a test. So nothing on that has changed. It's just, we are saying we're just not doing any random ones anymore if they're not a CDL holder.
Great question.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, ma'am.
I would encourage, all departments, department heads to assign someone to do that training. My experience has been that we have had people in positions test positive. Previously, that safety impact position, was left up to the department head on who would get tested. Some departments suggested and wanted all of their people to be tested, i.e. the sheriff's department. They wanted, that held a gun to be, subject to random testing. So all of that's gonna go away, it sounds like. So I would suggest somebody get trained so you can have that random test done if you think it's necessary.
And it's my understanding, I think it's against the law to randomly test.
It's a violation of your civil rights, apparently. I was kind of doing some research on it. They basically, you have to show cause of why you want to test that person randomly, and that's what the certified department supervisor determines, basically.
I think that's what we're doing away with, is the random.
Okay.
If there's a reason.
But they can do, yes, and I spoke out, yeah,
Yeah.
to get trained so you can, if you feel like someone
Yes,
needs to be.
there's cause there. If they're showing symptoms, things like that.
So the CDL drivers will still continue to be randomly
And
tested.
hopefully all these
Correct.
truck drivers have CDL, and if they don't, you need to get that done.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, we have a motion by Spinrad, second by Graves. All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, that carries 5-0. Agenda item number 5, take all appropriate action to approve the final plat for the Levati Farm subdivision. Commissioners, this item was on our last court agenda, but we passed on it as we were waiting on some of the requisite paperwork. Commissioner Getch is seeking approval of this final plat located off of County Road 356. It's also known as Adams School Road number 2. The owner is subdividing out a 1.61 acre tract or lot from a larger 100 acre tract of land. Again, this lot that's coming out is 1.61 acres. The court approved the preliminary plat back on April the 27th. Monica Martin from Permits and our county attorney have reviewed the requisite documents. Commissioner Getch has worked with Joyce and confirmed that we have the final plat and the certified tax receipt. As I understand, as explained to me by Trey, there is not a title policy, but Commissioner Getch has seen a landowner deed that he believes alleviates any concerns related to the ownership of the property. Commissioner Getch, this is your item.
Yes, that's correct. It was a local attorney that did this, and I spoke to Trey, and he said that as far as he's concerned, it's fine.
That's your motion.
That's my motion.
So Commissioner Getch's motion is to approve the final plat for the Levati Farm subdivision. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Matthews. Getch and Matthews, all in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, that carries 5-0. Item 6, take all appropriate action to purchase a roller with funds from Special Road and Bridge Fund Precinct 3 machinery and equipment. It's in the budget item 020.614.512. Commissioner Getch is seeking approval to purchase the roller from Liveboard. The approximate cost will not or should not exceed $80,000, should not. Commissioner Getch has limited funds in his current operating budget of 2020. This item is on today's agenda pursuant to county budget policy requiring court approval for the purchase of non-budgeted capital items. Commissioner Getch, this is your item.
Yes, I wasn't expecting to buy a roller, but we started having trouble with our roller. We can just replace the motor and the wheels 6 years ago, and they're starting to go out again. It costs $20,000 to replace those motors, so the machinery that's put in isn't worth doing that again. We spent $15,000 6 years ago, and that's $20,000. So we need to look at buying another one.
second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Getch, second by Commissioner Matthews. All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, that carries 5-0. Item 7, take all appropriate action to approve resolution 20-15, designating authorized signatories for contractual documents and documents for requesting funds pertaining to the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Program, CDBG-DR, contract number 20-065-107-C294. These next three agenda items, 7, 8, and 9, are related to our recently awarded Hurricane Harvey Disaster Recovery Grant that we applied for back in July of 2019. The CDBG Housing Disaster Recovery Program, this is not a housing one, the Disaster Recovery Block Grant will provide Wharton County with $2,028,234 in infrastructure improvements. It's 2,028,234 in infrastructure improvement. On July 22nd, this court provided statutorily mandated notice that Wharton County would submit a CDBG DR application for $2,028,234 for flood and drainage projects and emergency generators at critical infrastructure facilities in unincorporated areas related to Hurricane Harvey disaster events in the General Land Office CDBG-DR Hurricane Harvey Disaster Recovery Act program. I actually read that into court. It was a requisite part. You may not remember, but I read it right at the beginning so that they encourage public comments based on it. You may recall a year after Hurricane Harvey, Eric went to each of you and tried to identify some projects. I think there was like 10 projects that were identified. We narrowed it down. I actually signed the grant on the contract on April the 27th of this year. The grant contract was executed on April the 29th of 2020. That meant they went ahead and signed it. It was executed. And it's set to, the contract execution date is April the 29th of this year, and everything must be completed by July 31st of 2022. Last Thursday, May the 7th, our auditor, maybe that's a couple of Thursdays now, our auditor, Barbara Starling, our engineering consultant, Eric Schreibe, and I met via telephone conference, or we were on a telephone conference with the GLO and GrantWorks, discussing the implementation of this grant. There are 3 projects associated with this grant. The first one is that Wharton County will conduct a hydraulics and analysis study of the lower Peach Creek from Lee's Lane to the San Bernard River. This study will be used to evaluate localized rainfall flooding and regional Colorado River flooding to assess a 2-year, 10-year, 25-year, 100-year, and 500-year flood risk in the region. So this is going to be tied into that Tri-County study. This was one of the things that Eric identified. Remember, we've been working with Matagorda and Colorado counties, as well with the cities of Wharton, Columbus, and Bay City to get a updated map of flooding and such. They did a bathymetric study of the Colorado River, where they went in and they, for a better word, pinged the bottom of the river to find out what the depths currently are there, what the bottom looks like. I know Eric sent an email out recently that information is pretty much gathered and done, and I think they're going to send it. I don't remember if it's the National Weather Service they're sending it to, but someone's going to review it for them. What was the river plain? What is it named?
It's they needed the datum numbers for the river bottom.
But where is it going? What's the other one we work with? The river forecast?
West Gulf River Forecast Center.
They're sending it to one of those to be reviewed.
That's where our warning things come out based on the depth.
So this is an early warning. We were trying to get an inundation map. So this is part of it. This is again, part of it's a study from Lee's Lane, from the lower Peach Creek from Lee's Lane to San Bernard. That estimated cost is $800,000 of this grant. The Lake Net project is in this grant. This is the county's hopeful solution to most of the Lake Neck flooding concerns. Lake Net is a difficult situation where large volumes of city runoff waters naturally drain into this lower area. This is right by the football field in Wharton. If you're not sure where it is in that community, there's Lake Net. Local residents have been working with the city and school officials for months trying to identify a plausible solution, and then Commissioner Zahn was brought in. One suggestion early on was to permanently hold the lake levels at or below 50%, so when a big rain came, there would be capacity. There was another alternative we discussed in court for digging a release ditch from Lake Neck down to County Road 129, which is also called Montgomery Road, but officials weren't able to secure landowner participation. Finally, the county, with Eric, this is an old plan, but that was discussed a long time ago, but the plan that the county has proposed is a $690,000 project, $690,000, and it's a drainage improvement project that will extend, as I understand it, varied drainage pipes from Lake Net northeast to the natural drainage there on County Road 166, it's also called East Alabama Road. It'll then proceed north into the county's existing County Road 133 drainage system. And the viability of this project, like all of it, hinges on area landowners agreeing to county drainage easements. You'll remember this courtroom was filled a couple of times with concerned residents, and I know I made the comment, Commissioner Zahn probably did, is that we need help from the landowners, and they all said, we'll all do it, we'll all grant you easements or whatever. That's not always the case. And so if we can't get the easements to do this, we're going to have a problem. But we hope to resolve the Lake Ness flooding issues. And again, it's a $690,000 project. And then the third part of the project was that Wharton County would install concrete foundations and generators at 2 treatment facilities, one in Louise and the other in Bowling. And the approximate cost is $300,000 for this. You may recall when we looked at this, it was also possibly mentioned Funderford, but the money in the plan is not showing that. And so there are 3 projects. I'm not going to take you back through. Commissioner Graves will hit me, but the first one's a hydraulic analysis study of Lower Peach Creek from Leeds Lane to San Bernard River. It's approximately $800,000. The Lake Net project, which is taking the water kind of northeast to County Road 166 and then on to 133 is approximately $690,000. And then the generators and their foundations in Louise and Bowling is another $300,000. So these 3 items we're doing now are related to that contract, that disaster recovery contract. They call for the passage at this time of of item 7, resolution 2015, which, as in past grants, designates myself as county judge and our auditor, Barbara Starling, as the authorized signatories for the contractual documents and any other documents requesting funds on behalf of Wharton County. So we're going to have to sign off that the work was done. We're going to have to sign off that the money comes. We've done this with every grant. And so again, we're asking you to approve resolution 2015, designating authorized signatories. Questions or a motion? Motion by Commissioner Graves. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Zahn. Graves and Zahn, all in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, that carries 5-0. Item 8, take all appropriate action to approve resolution 20-16. It's a resolution regarding civil rights for Wharton County, Texas, CDBG-DR grant for the Texas General Land Officer. This item requests passage of resolution 2016, formally stating that our county and its representatives will comply with all federal and state civil rights laws, policies, and statutes as they are related to any part of the aforementioned projects, procurement, and construction. Is there a motion or any question? Commissioner Graves, is there a second? Second by Commissioner Matthews. Graves and Matthews, all in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, that carries 5-0. Item 9, take all appropriate action to approve grant administration services contract between Wharton County and GrantWorks Inc. as the consultant on community development block grant disaster recovery program, CDBG-DR contract number 20-065-107-C294. Commissioners, GrantWorks was selected by this court to administer this grant back on June the 25th of 2018, June the 25th of 2018. Today's agenda item seeks court approval of a formal administrative service contract between GrantWorks and Wharton County to have them administer the entire CDBG-DR program and process for our county. GrantWorks will provide a turnkey job and oversee all phases of the program. So bottom line, they'll tell Barbara and I what we're supposed to sign it, when we're supposed to sign it, and they'll check it and sign off on it as far as reviewing it. As with previous contracts, GrantWorks administrative services, their fees are paid from the grant. It's not from the county, it comes out of the grant, and as I understand it, Joyce checked, there's no matching funds on any of this grant, which is Hurricane Harvey recovery. Gentlemen, is there a motion to hire GrantWorks here, formally hire them? Motion by Commissioner Zahn, second by Commissioner Graves. Zahn and Graves, all in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, that carries 5-0. Item 10, we do this each year at this time as we submit the 2021 budget calendar. A copy of the calendar is in your folder or package you received. The numbers, Barbara and I visited briefly last week, and the numbers, it's way too early. I know Commissioner Zahn kind of reached out to me on where we're headed. I would tell you, you need to think about what are wants and what are needs, and of course, always ask. You can always ask. No one's ever said you can't ask. That's to every department for something. But I know you've seen on the listserv, there's a number of counties who are starting their budget process this year, asking each department to look at a 10% cut and see what that looks like. I'm not saying that's what we need to do, but that's what a number of counties are doing. Our early estimates, and just guessing, so to speak, is we could possibly drop $300,000 in revenue this year. In other words, we projected it to pay the bills to the end of this year. We could be $300,000 short with sales tax, fees and such, and possibly even property tax collections. We do have a good fund balance. We can certainly make up that loss in our fund balance. But when you look ahead to next year, we're not real sure what they're going to do with property taxes. The CAD numbers that are coming out, I don't think I've received mine yet, but I know in neighboring counties they've come out. And overall, they're up to 10% higher in a number of counties. And the governor has made several talks, and the Attorney General, Ken Paxton, has ruled that this isn't a disaster like other disasters. In other words, it didn't involve property. It was a disaster, health disaster and such, but the valuations, the Attorney General has, in his opinion, said valuations shouldn't go down because it wasn't like a flood or a fire that destroyed your property value. And so the governor, I've read and heard him say twice that he expects counties and cities to lower their taxes to cover the burden on local taxpayers. And so I would say, to me, there's like $12 billion in the rainy day fund. This is a time to tap into that and cover lost sales taxes and things like that. But I do not believe that's the state. The state right now is saying the counties and the cities should try to help the local people with food. Normally, when values go up, your sales tax rate goes down. But in this case, they may do something to keep the values. I don't know. He's pretty much saying counties and cities should lower their tax rate even beyond that. So I don't know what you do, what services do you cut. Most of our funds are required by law. The court system, the jail system, that's required by law. You can't cut those. The only areas that we could really make a significant cut, I'm looking at the Corps of deputy over here, but it's the law enforcement on the street, and we certainly don't want to do that, and the precinct workers, and we certainly don't want to do that, and then things like the library or something like that, but, you know, if you cut one person out of this office and one person out of that office, that's gonna take a long way to get to $500,000 or something like that, so do not panic or worry about this year revenues not coming in, because we do have a strong fund balance. But when you start looking ahead to things that revolve, like salaries will be there year after year after year and things like that, it's gonna be tough. I mean, Richard, I'm gonna call Richard out, but I think it relates to Richard was asking, he needs to purchase something, I don't remember what it was, and he was wondering what kind of capital will be in next year's budget. You know, we've been blessed each year, y'all had, you know, 150, 200,000, whatever each. We've had a bridge contingency, that may not be there. Again, we need more information from the CAD, and we need new sales tax. And the big sales tax is gonna come real quick, and we're in June, we're gonna get it.
We just got March, so if there's a delay, you know, there, so we're just kind of waiting and seeing.
March
Was actually very good, compared with last year, but then it didn't hit, and so we'll see what April brings.
It all hit like the second, third week in March,
Exactly.
and so it's all something to tell. So that's the best answer I have. Any questions? We put all the dates that we always put here. We didn't address this, but if Brady, if you wanted to, if we went above the rollback rate, you know, there has to be an election. You're all familiar with SB2. There has to be an election this year. We didn't put those dates in here. I don't know. I'll just tell you, for me, it'd be hard to go over the rollback rate with this going on. It'd be hard to go over rollback anytime. But these are the dates that if we stayed with the effective rate, or we went above the effective rate, but we stayed under the new rollback. So if you have questions or concerns, reach out to Barbara or myself. Okay, I'm going to move us to the consent agenda. It's items 11 through 16, and I'll ask that this time, would any of the commissioners like to pull one of the items so that we can deliberate on it separately? If not, we need a motion.
Judge, may I make a comment on a typo just for the record? Certainly. Number 11 would be appointing to the Texana
Yes.
Center Board.
That's what's on their letter.
Oh, really?
They have Texas Center Board of Trustees.
Oh, well,
That's the
then,
letter.
withdraw that comment. Didn't think anybody would know what that is.
Okay, good point. Anything else? Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Graves. And Commissioner Zahn, would you add the caveat that if number 11 is Texana, that this is Texas or Texana, that however it goes down? And Commissioner Graves, you go second that?
Yes, sir.
And Barbara, for the minutes, are you good with that? I believe it does say Texas, but just in case we don't have to bring it back. Okay, all in favor of approving the consent agenda items 11 through 16 as presented and as commented on concerning the Texana, Texas Center Board on number 11, raise your hand. Opposed, that carries 5-0. Excellent. Moving then to item 17, permits, precinct 1.
No.
Precinct 2.
Yes, sir. Or United Engineers, Inc. It's copper telecommunications cable and road 252 along the right.
County Road 252?
Yes, sir.
What is it again that they're putting?
Copper cable.
What is that for like telecommunications?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's your motion, sir?
That's my motion.
And they have to choice whatever they need. Utilities don't pay anything, do they? Okay. There's a motion by Commissioner Gray, seconded by Commissioner Zahn. Graves and Zahn, all in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, that carries 5-0. Any others in 2?
No, sir.
3, 4.
Yes, sir, on the same thing, United Engineers, put a AT&T copper telecommunications cable along County Road 405.
Okay. And that's your motion, sir? Motion by Commissioner Matthews, seconded by Commissioner Graves, you missed it second here. Commissioner Matthews, second by Graves. All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, that carries 5-0. Go back for a second, and just for the record, looking at item 11, I'm reading the letter, and it said Texana at the top, and everything is Texana, but it definitely says position 9 at the Texas Center Board of Trustees. I'm betting that's a typo myself, but anyway, you're good with, we passed it whether it's Texas or Texana. Item 18, pay claims. Commissioners, a list of claims was sent to you for your review. At this time, I'll ask the county treasurer to read the amount of the register to the minutes.
Yes, it is $488,440.43. 488,440.43.
Thank you, ma'am. If there are no questions or concerns, we need a motion to pay the claims as presented. Motion by Commissioner Graves.
Third.
Seconded by Commissioner Zahn. Graves and Zahn, all in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, that carries 5-0. We'll now sign another Mylar. Do you think this, or I need to go ahead and really? That's not what we're outside.
Deep in thought, deep in thought. Didn't know the well was that deep.
PDF stuff.
Okay. Yes, right.
sir, I think so. Commissioner, want to let me know. Yes, sir.
Tell me where this is. Yeah.
I was gonna say that the other day when Eric canceled.
Yeah.
And city people were all. Calling you though, Richard, weren't they?
Nobody told me, except I called him by accident. He told me.
Did you check this over there?
Yes,
I need to sign it.
Who do you need to sign?
Oh. That's what he can go down. Okay, is there anything we missed, Barbara?
We're good.
Anybody got anything else? Anyone else like to address the court? Any not?
Thank you.
Okay, I need a motion to adjourn. So moved. Motion by Commissioner Vaughn, seconded by. All right, Commissioner Getch, broke it. Zahn, Getch, all in favor, raise your hand, opposed. We are adjourned. It carries at 5-0 at 10:28 a.m. The vote was 5-0. Motion is Commissioner Zahn, seconded by Commissioner Getch. Thank you.